All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another Curator Coaching. I see a few people jumping in the chat right now. Michelle, Peter, Sarah. If you guys are just jumping on right now, do me a favor. Want to make sure the audio and the visual is working for you. So if you could, go ahead and just let me know where you're calling in from in the chat. What location, what market do you serve? Today, we got a special edition of Curator Coaching. Our camera died, so we got a Logitech webcam, which reminds me of like the old 1990 MTV movie, MTV videos, where like it's kind of like they're following around the artist. That's what it feels like today. So if you guys are used to the high production quality, we're gonna make it work this week with whatever we got. I think that's part of actually being great at marketing is just using what you've got and not using any excuses. Guys, if you're just joining us right now, welcome to today's coaching. Let us know where you're calling in from. Hey, Gerald, what's up? Justin, cool. We're going to get started here in just about 1 minute. We want to make sure everyone who's registered, the hundreds of people who registered for today's coaching, are going to be able to tune in with us today live on the air. I hope you guys are having a great Thursday. I just got back, just a quick story for you as we wait for everyone else to jump on today's call. I just got back from spending an entire day with my friends at 1000 Watt Consulting up in Portland, Oregon. Oregon, excuse me. That's how to pronounce Oregon. They correct me a couple times. What was so interesting about that experience is for those of you who have not gone through the process of thinking about your brand deeply, have not gone through the process of sort of reflecting upon who you are, why you do what you do, how you're different. What I can tell you from personal experiences, every decision you make as a realtor becomes easier once you figure out who you are. And although the process is actually incredibly painful and difficult, the fact that you can actually like have solace in figuring out your value proposition and how you want to position yourself in the market, once you figure that thing out, all the other million little micro decisions you make every single day are incredibly easy once you've made that sort of big decision. So my advice for those of you who are tuning in right now before we kick it off today is if you haven't had a chance to take some time, between now and the end of the year before you sort of gear up for 2020, to think really deeply about how you want to position yourself in your marketplace, how you want to think about, your services, your unique value proposition, take the time to do so now. Because all the other things you're doing from a sales perspective, from a marketing perspective, from a service perspective, all that stuff becomes much easier and much clearer to your potential customers once you figure that stuff out. So cool. All right. It looks like we got a bunch of people joined us. Hey, Michelle from St. Augustine, Florida. Justin. Cool. And guys, if you're just tuning in right now, be sure to drop your name and your location in the chat for me because we're going to be hopefully getting to some questions throughout today's session. So for those of you who don't know me, let me just do some screen sharing here so you guys can pull my slides up for you. Hang tight for me just one moment. Okay. All right. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Jimmy Mackin, CEO of Curaytor. I've been in this industry for now about a decade. As you guys can see here, I've spoken all around the country, working with some of the best agents in every single marketplace. The bottom picture here on the bottom left or bottom right, excuse me, is actually me at Inman Connect launching Curaytor in front of a stage of thousands of agents. So it was just a pretty wild experience. You guys will notice in these photos that I'm typically wearing glasses in many of these photos. I'm not wearing glasses on today's broadcast. That's because after one of my sessions with delivering a coaching session, a woman came up to me and says, hey, Jimmy, you remind me of a celebrity. And obviously when you hear that for the first time, you're super flattered. And then she proceeded to tell me that I look like Rachel Maddow. So I don't wear glasses anymore. So that being said, let's talk about today's coaching session, which is exactly what to say to grow your business. I'm not gonna go back to that slide there. Exactly what to say to grow your business. So at a high level, I think it's really important to understand that as you start thinking about the way you want to attract sellers, we need to think about what are the best brands in the world doing differently now that you're not doing. And the answer is very simple. In 1998, a company called Webvan rolled out a product, and this is the first product of its kind, which is they allowed consumers to search and buy groceries online. And just out of curiosity, for those of you who are on today's call, how many of you right now use an online delivery service to drop off groceries? I'm just curious. How many of you actually use an online delivery service to drop off groceries? Yeah, and the answer is going to come flying in here. Webvan was the first company to do so. They did that in 1998. They raised roughly around like $1.5 billion. They rolled out and scaled to every major city in the U.S. And within 18 months, they were bankrupt. Who bought Webvan? Any guesses? That's right, Amazon. Amazon purchased a company called like Home Delivery, which the largest stakeholder in the business was Webvan. They bought sort of the IP, the infrastructure. They learned from all of Webvan's mistakes to create Amazon Fresh. Now, Amazon Fresh is ubiquitous. My folks are from New Hampshire, and so is most of my family, and they use Amazon Fresh. And I know when a product reaches New Hampshire, in the middle of New Hampshire, it has reached mainstream. So what Amazon decided to do was, even though they saw the opportunity of using online to reach consumers and deliver groceries, they realized the timing wasn't right. In order for consumers to really want to change their behavior, the experience had to be better than going to the grocery store. So going to the grocery store is in itself a fairly simple, straightforward experience. It's not the most convenient thing at times, but it's not the most difficult either. Amazon had to create a better experience for the end consumer to get people to actually change their behavior. And now what people are predicting is that the online delivery space will exceed in store purchasing within the next 3 to 4 years. So the space that took about 20 plus years to basically reach the mainstream is now going to overtake the grocery game within the next 3 or 4 years here. Now, I'm not sure if you guys knew this, but Walmart also is in this space. Walmart actually takes it one step further, which is Walmart will not only allow you to buy groceries on Walmart.com, but they will actually deliver the groceries and they will go into your house and they will put the groceries away for you. So this is a company that's obsessing over customer experience. The feedback hasn't been overly positive, though. I don't even trust the employees of Walmart while I'm at Walmart. So I think you have to understand from a consumer experience perspective where to begin and where to end. People want convenience, but they also have some expectations that you can sort of fulfill upon that. So what we're going to talk about today is a concept that we believe wholeheartedly at Curaytor, and it's what I believe the future of sales and marketing is all about, which is we need to think about obsessing over the consumer experience. And there's ways that we can do that through our sales process. At Curaytor, we work primarily with listing agents who want more listings. That's the type of clients that we work with. We focus on helping listing agents get more listings. We focus on helping them promote their listings to get more listings. We focus on helping them create content on their website to attract people who are interested in selling their properties. We focus on marketing campaigns and sales efforts to keep them in touch with their past clients and sphere of influence. Curaytor is all about helping listing agents get more listings. In order to do that, you've got to rethink and reimagine how you sell. Buyer leads are easy. You can have an IDX website from any of the IDX providers, all of which do great work, and you can generate buyer leads. But I'm just out of curiosity, I just want to get some feedback in the chat for everyone who's tuning in right now. What is easier? What's harder for your business? And what's more important, listings or buyers? Just drop in the comment right now. What's more important for your business, listings or buyers? I can see the chats coming in right now, and we're seeing a lot of people saying listings, listings, listings. Yeah, listings are where it's at. That's what we focus on. Certainly going into 2020, you're going to see Curaytor really focus a lot more on creative ways to help our clients get more listings. Maybe you guys are experiencing this as it relates to your listings, but the time it takes to sell a property is, and the amount of effort that goes into it is sometimes sort of can be significantly more than it has been in previous years. We're seeing this sort of transition right now where the market conditions are changing in every market that we work within. And what that means is the properties that used to sell within 7 days or 14 days with multiple offers, are now going to be in the market for 30 days, for 60 days, for 90 days. And what's going to be incredibly important for those of you who want more listings in 2020 is to realize that the best way to get more listings is also the best way to service your existing listings, which is how you market and how you position your homes. And Richard drops a comment in the chat saying buyers can also be sellers. You're absolutely right. Buyers can masquerade as sellers. But let me be clear about one thing. We interview sellers all the time now at Curaytor. We conducted a consumer research project, and we start talking to your sellers, and what they're telling us, what they care about, is they care about what are you doing for me? How are you promoting my property after that initial launch? When you promote it and you put in the MLS and all that, what's next? Why hasn't my home sold yet? And it's just a fascinating question when you start to uncover that sellers want to see you work for it. If you're not promoting and marketing their property, if you're promoting your website or your brand, these are important things. Don't get me wrong. We've been coaching them for many, many years, but your sellers don't care about your brand. They care about their listings. So we've got to have this sort of mind shift change towards what can I do from a digital marketing perspective to promote my listings to help me attract potential buyers, to help me sell the properties, and thus showcase to the rest of the potential sellers in my network that I'm really good at what I do. You can't do that with just an IDX. IDX is great for buyers. Having automation is great for buyers, but sellers need something more. And that's what we focus on here at Curaytor. So let's take a look at the sales process for one moment, though, before we get into some actual practical coaching for you guys today. As it stands today in our industry as it relates to sales, oftentimes we are convinced and persuaded, and in some cases seduced into believing that the best way to sell is to pound the phones and try to convert a lead into a new prospect. And we give these names like 33 touch and 12 days of torture and all these sort of euphemisms, if you will. And the reality is that consumers do not want to be harassed until they do business with you. So much of the effort that we apply to selling and following up with leads is really focused on just trying to pound these people into submission. And I had a chance to interview a few people recently. One of them was a woman by the name of Melanie Diesel, and she worked for the New York Times. She won a bunch of awards for one of the best brand, they call them brandmatorials, where it is basically promoting a brand through an advertisement, right? Or branding your company through an advertisement. Excuse me, it's called an advertorial, which is an advertisement that's also an editorial. She won an award for an advertorial because it was a great combination of advertising a show on Netflix and also educating the consumer. So it was like a sort of a hybrid piece. And I asked her a simple question. I said, "Hey, Melanie, if your realtor calls you, your prospective realtor calls you, 3 times, 4 times within the first day, what's your initial reaction to them? What's the feeling and the emotion you have?" And her reaction was, they're desperate. If your realtor, calls you another 5 or 6 times over the next 3 to 4 days, what's your initial reaction to that? And then she's like, I would start to look at a restraining order. See, we have got to become consumer first, in the sense that consumers are already used to great experiences with everything else they do. We have got to stop thinking about sales as something different than the beginning of the consumer experience. And this is something I want you to write down because I think it's so important. When you start treating the beginning of the sales process as the beginning of the consumer experience, it changes your entire follow-up strategy. So today, we're going to talk about exactly what to say to help grow your business. And the premise of this is going to be based off of the fact that the brands that are winning in 2020 are the brands who obsess over the consumer experience. Now, if you ask the average salesperson what they do every single day, this is generally what you're going to get. You're going to get consumers who say, "Oh, I'm kicking ass. I'm crushing it. I'm hustling." Right? So if you have a bunch of buyer's agents on your team or even some listing agents on your team, what do they do every day besides service their customers? This is usually what they say. The reality is their days look a lot more like this, where they spend a lot of time kind of organizing their database, whatever that means. They spend a lot of time maybe calling leads, but not actually making contact. They spend a lot of time trying to figure out ways to qualify leads by trying to reach out, really aggressively to get someone on the phone. And very little of their time in the reality of the world that we live in is spent actually selling, actually delivering a great customer experience for those people who are, not quite your clients yet. So what I want everyone here in the call to think about, and what I'm going to challenge you to think about, is this basic idea that if we start thinking about leads that are early in the process, not as leads, but if we start treating them like customers, then they're going to become customers. If we focus on delivering value, we focus on creating great experience for them, that will tell the consumer every single thing they need to know about potentially working with us, a curator. So for me, the biggest thing that I want you guys to keep in mind here as we go through this process is I'm going to challenge conventional wisdom as it relates to the traditional follow-up techniques. I'm going to challenge you guys to think very differently about the way you prospect, the way you follow up, and the way you communicate. And the reason I'm going to base everything I coach you on today on this topic is to raise awareness of the fact that if you're a listing agent who wants more listings, it starts with obsessing over the customer experience. If you're a listing agent who wants more listings, it starts with treating every single lead that comes in like they're already a customer. Because we're going to enter into a market, if we haven't already done so in most areas, where you're going to have to do a lot more to earn your commission. And only the great agents, the professional agents will win in those markets. So let's talk about some consumer research we've done, because we've been asking this question. I'm going to just pull up some examples for you guys here. We've been doing these consumer research questions. We said, hey, was there anything that impressed you about your agent? And what we're doing, just to be clear, is we're actually picking up the phone. We're calling our client sellers as a way to better understand what do sellers want, what do even potentially buyers want from their listing agents. And you can see here this response to me was so powerful. Was there anything your agent did that impressed you? And the response from the consumer was, I heard from a friend that Paula talked her out of selling her home. So the reason this consumer chose Paula to be her agent was because Paula talked her friend out of selling her home. So you see that and you're like, well, what's the takeaway there? Well, clearly the takeaway is that consumers believe each other far more than they believe us as realtors. Consumers will carry a lot more weight with what other people say about you than what you say about yourself. So from an integrity perspective, clearly this is ROI on integrity. Pretty obvious. But more importantly, what happens is that if you treat every single lead and every single prospect and every single past client as a customer and focus on how to add value, what you'll see is even if they don't buy from you or sell with you, they're going to talk about you. And that is going to help spread your brand. And that's going to result in that kind of come list me moment. Another example for you here. What was your most frustrating part of the experience? Nothing really. Tara kept me up to date on everything. I never felt in the dark. And you don't have to drop this in the chat, guys, but I want you to think about what is the one word that comes to mind when I read that quote? What's the one kind of characteristic that Tara has that is actually that actually stands out to you? Think about that for 1 second. Nothing really. Tara kept me up to date on everything and I never felt in the dark. Now you may have said to yourself, it's communication. And you're close. Not quite just communication. Rather, it is anticipation. Anticipating what the customer is going to want to know before they actually need to know it. See, communication is you're having a conversation, you're answering the questions, you're explaining what's happening next. If you anticipate the customer's needs, which is exactly what great brands do who obsess over experience, which results in customers talking about their brand to their friends. If you anticipate the customer's needs, then all of a sudden it leaves them with a sort of overarching sense that you know what you're doing and you're a professional and that they hire the right person. And how this is going to come into play later on the road is some of you right now who are listening to today's call have customers who you're going to have to do a price reduction on that home. And you might put your head down on the pillow at night thinking to myself, well, that's not really something I'm looking forward to having that conversation about. And that is a really challenging thing that that I feel is probably something most realtors don't talk a lot about is they carry this burden and stress that comes along with once you get the listing and you got to sell the listing, what happens when things don't go right? What I can tell you right now is certainty is that consumers are hiring you to market their property and they are hoping that you can sell it for the most amount of money in the least amount of time. But what they value during the process more than anything is your ability to sort of keep them up to date and make sure they're not in the dark. So when you have a situation where the customer is, in this case, it's a price reduction is coming in 2 weeks, 3 weeks because the home hasn't sold. It's been over 21 days. It's just slightly overpriced. The market's telling you that, the buyers are telling you, it's just, you got to reduce the price. Then what you need to do is set yourself up for success by doing one very simple thing. I would reach out and I'd say, hey, Richard, um, as you can tell, the property hasn't got the offers that we're looking for. What I'm going to do is over the next 2 weeks, I'm going to run a few more marketing campaigns to see if I can help position the property differently to attract some additional buyers. I'm going to also go through and reach out to every single person who maybe has seen the property, an agent, and I'm going to ask them and reach out to them to see if there's any potential buyers that would be interested in the home. I'm also going to, email my database. I'm also going to run another Facebook ad. I'm also going to go ahead and send out, a new story on Instagram and do a live kind of like promotion of the property. I'm going to do this over the next 2 weeks in the hopes of maybe getting some interest and sparking up some excitement in the property. If by the end of this process, we're not getting any interest, then we need to take a step back and we need to figure out how we can maybe have a different pricing strategy to sort of help drive and help spark interest in the home. So what you're doing there is you're not saying, hey, we need to have a conversation about reducing the price. What you're saying is, I'm going to do 5 more things, 7 more things to help sell this property. I'm going to give it everything I've got. And as I go through this, then at that point, I think it's time for us to take a step back and figure out how to reduce that price. Now, the beauty of something like this is that you're basically setting them up for success with that price reduction conversation because you're explaining to them through the process that, listen, like this is going to come. If this thing happens, then this thing happens. That is what consumers want. If you just blindside them, or worse, don't give them any updates, or even worse, feel like you're not doing anything, they're going to want to fire you. We're talking to your sellers, guys, where they're telling us like things like, the things they value. And if you're not communicating, anticipating their needs, they're not going to be interested in working with you. And they're going to look for another realtor. So this one's fascinating to me. We asked a consumer, did you ever consider listing a house with a realtor? We looked at Redfin, but ultimately decided to list with Danny because her reputation was amazing. Again, it goes back to reputation, goes back to past experiences, goes back to delivering a great experience for your existing clients. So if you look at this, right, the thing that jumps out to me that's really surprising is this consumer doesn't think Redfin's a realtor. That's what's surprising to me. They think of Redfin as a website. They don't think of Redfin as a traditional realtor. So that works in your favor, by the way. And this is something that you need to ask yourself a very simple question when you're going through this process is when you're going through the process of actually maybe competing for a listing, one of the things that you should ask a consumer through the process is, if you don't hire a realtor, what's your plan? Because that will tell you every single thing you need to know about how they're actually thinking about, the next steps. If you don't hire, I want you to ask this on your next listing presentation. If you don't hire a realtor, what's your plan? Ask it early in the conversation. They may say to you, oh, there's no way that we're going to not hire a realtor. So now they're all in on hiring a realtor. So that's good information you can use later on in this listing presentation. Or they may say, if we don't hire a realtor, we're probably going to go ahead and list it on, buy or sells. That tells you some information you can use. So when you're presenting the options, you can present options that are in concert with what they are going to do if they don't hire you. Oftentimes we position ourselves against options they don't even or aren't even considering. As an example, let's say you are a Keller Williams agent, and let's say your number one competitor in the market is a Coldwell Banker agent. Let's just say that's a theoretical for you. Well, if the consumer is not even interested or knows who Coldwell Banker is, and their only other option is Redfin, as an example, by the time you get to the end of listing presentation where you're talking about what makes you different or unique or special, if you start talking about, well, there's other agents in the market, like this Coldwell Banker agent who you may have heard of that does really well, but we're better for all these reasons. Like, you're introducing a competitor into a conversation that didn't exist there before. So you need to understand exactly what your agent or what your consumer is going to do if they don't list with you. And that needs to be something you gather during a discovery call. Few more for you here, guys, and we'll get into the content for today. Did you ever consider listing it by yourself? The consumer said, yeah, I did, but I was afraid of all the complexities. We unfortunately caused this problem ourselves because we, as realtors, generally speaking, spend way too much time branding and promoting and marketing that selling your home is going to be easy. And so what has happened after years of doing this is that consumers actually believe us. Now, just out of curiosity, for those of you on today's call and this live coaching, how many of you feel that selling a home is easy? Yes or no in the chat. Sometimes, maybe, but overall, in large, is selling a home easy? Do you think selling a home in 2020 with the changing market conditions is going to be easy? See, when you're negotiating with another human being, nothing's really easy. So we have created this problem for ourselves where there's a perception problem that we don't do anything. So during this process, what we've got to do is we've got to talk about how selling your home is going to be, challenging and complex process that involves lots of different moving parts. But don't worry, that's why you're hiring a professional. That's why you're hiring a pro to help you navigate the situation. This visual really summarizes what the world looks like in 2020 and beyond. I would like to be assisted, or I would like to shop on my own. Consumers won. We have to have a consumer first mindset. If we are listing agents who want more listings, we have to obsess over the customer experience from the very beginning of the process when they are a lead or a prospect through the end of the process, which they actually sold their property with us and now they are actually a past client or someone in our sphere of influence. Consumers won. We have got to optimize our entire sales process around the consumer experience. So let's walk through the perfect sales process. What I'm going to cover with you guys today is some very specific techniques that you can begin to use that are going to help you from a sales perspective to improve the performance of your sales team. So this process is incredibly simple and it's incredibly easy to repeat as long as you're not spending all of your time chasing thousands of leads every single month. So the first thing you're going to do with any sales process, and I'm talking specifically about listings, is you're going to text the upfront contract. And what I mean by that is you're going to send them a text message that basically says, hey, I'm going to be calling you in 15 minutes. And during that call, here's what I'm hoping to get out of it. Number one, understand, your needs, your timeline. What are the things that are holding you back? Number two, discuss and present some options. Number three, talk about the next steps and moving forward. And the beauty of texting with an upfront contract is you're getting buy-in at the beginning of the process. If you are picking up the phone and you are calling a lead at 1 o'clock in the afternoon as promised, and you didn't actually text them beforehand, you're missing a massive opportunity. Number two, the opening fact question. This is something we coach in our book, Exactly What to Say for Real Estate Agents. The basic idea is how do you start every conversation, whether it's a conversation with a lead that you are prospecting or someone you have an appointment with. Opening fact question. Number three, set expectations. This is reinforcing the upfront contract you text them with beforehand. This is explaining to the consumer what exactly are we going to cover during this call or this meeting. And let's be really clear about this. And what we're trying to do here is we're trying to introduce clarity and focus into the process, because if someone is clear about what you do, then they can buy your service. They can hire you. If they are unclear about what you do because you don't have structure and processes in place during this sales journey, then what's going to end up happening is they're going to sort of get to the end of the sales process and say, oh, I really appreciate everything, but I'm going to have to think about it. Or, hey, I'm just not quite ready yet. Or, hey, I'm going to actually talk to a few other realtors. So part of the beauty of clarity is that you never get to that point where the consumer is sort of second guessing you towards the end of the process. Step 4 is discovery. This is where you focus on having a deeper understanding of exactly what motivates your sellers, exactly what their timeline is, and figuring out what problems they will go to any length to solve. That starts with great discovery. Then we're going to go over to overcoming objections, and finally next steps, and then lastly the follow-up recap. Okay. So this process, this A to Z process, is what I refer to as the perfect sales process. And it's not based off of sales, it's based off of an experience you're trying to create for the leads and prospects and the people in your network to communicate to them that you're really good at what you do. Before you can do that, though, You have to build up a list of highly qualified leads. And I'm getting questions in the slides here from people. Yeah, we're going to be giving the slides out to everyone after today's session. And yes, Chad, this session is being recorded. So let's talk about the consumer first prospecting. So as I mentioned before, this visual that you guys have here, this visual here, the perfect sales process, it starts with something that even begins the very beginning of it, which is consumer first prospecting. Now, the world that we live in real estate has been told a very important lie that somehow we can automate relationships. So what happens is, in an effort to create efficiencies with our business, we buy into the belief that somehow we can automate everything. And whereas automation has its place and automation needs to exist in a business, automation should be there. You know, if you want to send listing alerts, you shouldn't have to do that manually. If you want to, have reminders for yourself to follow up, you shouldn't have to do that manually. But in terms of the outreach to customers, in terms of the marketing campaigns you create and the ads you run and the emails you send that are really supposed to be like high quality marketing campaigns, you can't automate that. You should use data to inform your decision, but you shouldn't automate that. So I am fundamentally and philosophically against this idea of automation as a replacement for communication because it just simply has a very low ROI when you compare it to a high quality marketing campaign. So the best way to start the sales process is consumer first prospecting. And I'm going to walk you through a technique that we use that I've begun to coach our clients on, which is three techniques with sort of the fourth one being the option if you don't get a response in the first three. And the basic idea is this. You've got to take a lead from cold to warm. You should not cold call leads. It's a complete waste of time. You hate your job. It's awful in every sense of the word. I haven't met a single successful agent a single successful entrepreneur who has like picks up the phone and cold calls people. You guys probably got today. I'm sure if I drop in the chat right now, how many robocalls have you received today in the last like 3 hours, 4 hours since you've been awake? Probably 2 or 3. That number is sort of expanding exponentially. So this idea of cold calling people is something that fundamentally, yeah, Gerald's saying he received 5 today. Yeah. So like even if you're a legitimate caller, you're buried amongst robocalls. So what you want to do from a marketing perspective and a sales perspective is take people down a journey. Treat every lead like they are your customer. So starts with the power question, goes into a suggestion, moves into appointment, and then finally ends with the like kind of last attempt, which we call ghosted. So let me give you an example of this. Hey, Mary, I'm not sure this is for you, but I occasionally stumble across hidden gems in our market, pending foreclosures, recently reduced homes, or properties that have been undermarketed. Would you like me to send you the details if I come across one? This can be a text message. This can be a Facebook message. This can be a DM on Instagram. This can be an email. And what I'm basically doing here with a power question is I'm making a compelling offer, something to get someone to say, yes, I'd like to get that information. So rather than say what most of us do, which is, hey, would you like to spend some time today on the phone? Hey, like I reached out a few times, you haven't picked up. Let's chat. Hey, this is the 12th time I've pinged you and you haven't gotten back to me. What's up? Like you have to treat the consumer and the experience that you're delivering for them as the most important thing. So by texting, emailing, calling, or texting, emailing, sending a direct message on Instagram, sending a Facebook message like, hey, I got something of value. Would you like to be alerted when something comes out on the market? You're opening up the conversation to give them something that's worth more to them than just getting on a call with you. The next message you're going to send is one more thing. If you're serious about buying a home soon, would you be open-minded to one suggestion? Now, of course, you can have a small twist to that, which is if you're serious about selling a home soon, would you be open-minded to one suggestion? So the second technique in consumer first prospecting is what you're doing is you're earning the right to provide advice. That's all you're doing here is you're getting them to say, yeah, I actually would be open-minded to a suggestion. Did anyone else pick up on the other key word there? It's a really important word in that line. Again, this could be a text message. This could be an email. It could be a DM. It could be a Facebook message. What's the really important word there that you need to know as a potential, realtor? Right? Anyone going to guess? Yeah, that's it right there. It is serious. It is serious. What we're doing here is we're qualifying through copy. If someone replies to this, now you know this is a serious seller, a serious buyer, someone you want to spend more time on, right? And you might have, I'm just at, and again, this is just, I love the feedback we're getting in the chat, guys. I appreciate all the comments we have here. How many of you right now have over 500 people in your database? Just drop a yes in the chat right now. Do you have more than 500 people in your database? 600, 700, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000? Yeah. How are you going to prioritize those leads? See, by getting people to opt in, by saying, yes, I actually am serious, now you can focus your energy and effort on those individuals versus spending all your time spending every lead like they're the same exact person. Okay. So next up, they say to you, yeah, I'm actually open to a suggestion. Most people I work with are concerned about three things: being able to afford a property, put a down payment on it, finding a home that meets all the criteria, not overpaying for the dream home. If those are your concerns, then I'd love to set up a time to connect. When would be a good time tomorrow to chat? Right? And what we're doing here is we're using a technique which is describing their problems better than they can describe themselves. So as a seller, you'd have a script that'd be very similar. Most people I work with are concerned about three things. Selling their home too soon and not being able to afford a property. Number two, timing the market. Number three, not having a place to live after they sell the home. If those are your concerns, then let's have a time to talk. When would be a good time to connect tomorrow? So step three in consumer first prospecting is to schedule an appointment by describing the problems that they have, that they're experiencing, better than they can describe themselves. My co-author Phil M. Jones describes it as show them that you know them. So you can do that by writing a really compelling message through the form of a text, an email, a Facebook message, a DM on Instagram, right? Show them that you know them, because now you've created a compelling enough reason for them to pick up the phone and say, yeah, let's talk. Now, if they don't respond to any of the messages you're sending here, hi, Mary, I'm guessing you haven't gotten around to checking out the last few messages. Don't worry. I'm sure you're busy. I'll keep you posted if I come across any properties that I think are worth your attention. Okay. And all I'm doing here is I'm saying to myself, I'm leaving the door open for potential conversations later on down the road. If I reached out 2 or 3 times, they didn't get back to me, or I haven't heard back from them, now at this point, I don't want to just dismiss that lead. I spent a lot of money on marketing to capture that lead. I've been nurturing that lead. I want to keep the door open for future conversations, because that way, when I pick up the phone to call them, maybe a week later or 2 weeks later, I've already set the groundwork that I'm going to pick up the phone and actually have a conversation with them. See, this is how you treat a lead like they're a customer, like they're a human being. You can't automate all this stuff. You got to focus on one-to-one personal connections. You know, I think the old adage is true. I think it's always been true, which is that real estate is a relationship business. So we need to start treating leads like we're at the beginning of a relationship and stop treating them like they're just leads, is the point. So, guys, we're going to get into a few more tips today as I walk through a couple more scripts with you as we walk through the perfect consumer experience and how to master the sales process. For those of you who are just tuning in right now, again, my name is Jimmy Mackin, co-founder of Curaytor, CEO of Curaytor. I'm excited to provide some coaching for you guys today on how to actually generate more listings for your business in 2020. This call is being recorded, and the slides will be being emailed out after today's session. All right. So let's talk about I mentioned the beginning of the sales process, which is, I'll go back for a moment so you can see this, the text with the upfront contract. Here's a script I'm going to use. This is a text message I'd send out before the actual meeting. Hey, it's Jimmy Mackin calling with reaching out with Compass. As promised, I'm reaching out to check back in with you. I'm hoping to learn more about how we can help you overcome any challenges you might face that prevent you from achieving your real estate goals. I'm going to call you in a few minutes. I'm texting this before I call that lead. Whether they reply to an email or didn't reply to an email, I'm texting this before I pick up the phone and call them. That way, when they pick up the phone and they actually answer the phone, I don't have to say the dreaded words in sales, which is now a good time to talk, right? Which in most situations, the answer is going to be no. Like, think about this for 1 second, folks. Let's say you go to the mall. You get in your car, you drive to the mall, you find a parking spot. It's holiday season, it's busy. You park a half a mile away from the store. You walk into the mall, you walk into the Best Buy because you're there to get something, and the first person that greets you says, "Hey, welcome to Best Buy. How can I help you?" What is going to be your response every single time? "Oh, I'm just looking. I'm just browsing." See, we have been conditioned because of salespeople to have our guards up. So one of the things that we want to do here is by basically saying, "Hey, as promised, I'm reaching back out to check in with you. I'm hoping to learn more about how we can help you." By texting this in advance, I'm already getting consent when I pick up the phone and call them and they actually answer. I don't have to resell myself. Let's talk about first impressions. So now you text them, now you're going to pick up the phone and call them. Harvard Business Review did a study on first impressions, and what consumers understand about, or what consumers are able to derive from a first impression, is pretty remarkable. Within the first 7 seconds, a consumer is going to judge you and determine whether or not you're intelligent, whether or not you're a professional, whether or not you're worth talking to, whether or not they like you. In the first 7 seconds, they are going to make that determination. It's incredibly powerful information. Think about that for a second. If you're late to a call, if you stumble your words, if you don't come prepared, if you don't say the right things, they are going to judge you and determine whether or not they want to hire you. Prior to this call today, I was on the phone with Angela here in our office, and we called one of our clients' buyers, a gentleman by the name of Marcus in Baltimore. And we were asking Marcus, who has sold 3 homes, and he has worked with a bunch of realtors. We were asking Marcus, "Hey, why'd you hire our client Mark?" And his response was just so enlightening to us. He said, "He shook my hand, he looked me in the eye, he dressed like a professional, he acted like a professional, and that's why I hired him." So we can do that from a digital perspective as well. Because if we're waiting for someone to meet us in person to like us, if that's our strategy, we ain't going to be successful in 2020. We have got to create that sort of handshake, look them in the eye moment from a digital perspective. So first impressions matter. So here's my script. Opening fact question. "Hey, it's Jimmy calling with Compass. As promised, I'm reaching back out to connect. As promised, to show that I'm trustworthy, I have high integrity, I follow through with what I say. As I mentioned in my message to you, I told you I'd keep you in the loop if I came across any properties that were worth your time. I have a home that I think you might be interested in. Before I get into the details, I'd love to catch up. What's changed since the last time we connected?" Few things I'm doing here. First, opening. I'm introducing myself. Do not pick up the phone and say, "Hi, is this Eric?" Because you know who does that? Telemarketers, bill collectors, spammers, right? Introduce yourself. Professionals introduce themselves. "Hi, it's Jimmy Mackin with Compass. As promised, I'm reaching back out to connect." So what I'm doing here is opening, I introduce myself. Fact, this is a mutually agreeable fact. I told them, because I've been texting them and emailing them, that I would keep them in the loop. So now all I'm doing is doing what I told them I was going to do. And the third thing that I'm doing here is I'm actually I'm asking a question. Now, what's so critically important about this is there's a very specific type of question that I'm asking. Most realtors make the mistake of asking a closed-ended question, which is, "Are you still interested in this property?" And that obviously is going to be a yes or no. You can't really take the conversation anywhere with a straight yes or no answer. So when you ask a closed-ended question, you are setting yourself up for failure because you're basically ending the conversation within the first 20, 30 seconds. By asking an open-ended question, why, what, who, right, where, that opens up the door to a much longer conversation. And for those of you in sales, you already know this. Once you get the call rolling and you start kind of having a relationship and connecting with the consumer, it gets easier. The first 60 seconds is the hardest. So you've got to script it. You've got to know exactly what you want to say in that first 60 seconds. What's changed since the last time we connected? Now, notably, for those of you who are paying close attention, you might have picked up on something. There's a line that I use prior to that is really important. "I have the home that I think you might be interested in. But before we get into the details, I'd love to catch up. Now, for those of you who watch TV, live TV, this is a technique they use with every single like news station, which is coming up next. We're going to be covering A, B, and C. And in the meantime, we'll be back in a few minutes, right? We'll be back in 60 seconds. So they have this carrot that they're dangling at the end of the process. You can do that in sales. Hey, I've got some really important information to share with you today. But before we do, what's changed since the last time we connected? What's changed since the last time I reached out 2 months ago, right? How's the home searching process going so far? So you're establishing the purpose of the call. You've got some information for them. But before you get to that, before you get to the carrot, right? You're trying to start that conversation and get a little bit more of an update, get them talking early in the process. Here's an example of a seller script. Hi, it's Jimmy calling with Remax. As promised, I'm calling because I told you I'd keep you in the loop with any notable homes near yours sold, right? I have a home that I think you might be interested in, but before I get into the details, I'd love to catch up. How closely have you been following the market? Now, what happens if they tell you in this conversation, oh, I've been following the market super closely? Does that tell you something about this particular individual, about maybe their timing and when they're going to sell? I think the answer is obviously, yeah, right? I haven't been really following the market that closely. Well, they're probably not that interested in selling, but still make it a great experience because guess what? They probably know someone who is going to think about selling the property. All right. Number two, now that you've broken past that first sort of icebreaker, now this is the expectations. This is the upfront contract. The goal for today's call is to get a better understanding of how it can help you with your real estate needs. We'll dig into your situation, learn more about your goals, any roadblocks you might face. And then finally, what happens next, right, is we'll set you up a time to connect in person and review your options. Is there anything else you wanted to make sure we covered? And what you're trying to do here is you're just basically creating the agenda for today's call, but then you're getting that commitment early in the process. Then we move into discovery. This is probably one of the most important slides in my presentation. I want you guys to take a photo of it for me, because this is the right way to do discovery. See, one of the things that we're learning about interviewing and talking with sellers every day at Curaytor is that they derive the value you provide for them and they justify your commission based off of how much you listen to them. If they feel like you're a partner of theirs and they feel like you're on their side, they're willing to pay the money. People are willing to pay for professionals. They're just not willing to pay for amateurs. So what an amateur does is just ask a bunch of questions that they're going to try to get some information about that, try to like start a conversation. But what a professional does, it takes them down a journey. Starts with their pain. Tell me about why you haven't sold your home yet. Right? You've been thinking about selling your home for a year. Why haven't you sold your home yet? And this is where they'd give you a reason, right? This is where you'd reiterate the reason. Well, you haven't sold the home yet because you haven't found a property you wanted to move into. Right? Besides you, how does everyone else in the family feel about this? Does everyone else want to move too? Explore the impact of this. Is this a solo rogue agent in the family who wants to move, or does everyone in the family want to move? How is this affecting you today? Like, what's the problem with your current home? Well, we don't have an extra bedroom, or the laundry's in the basement, or there's no outdoor space, or the yard's not big enough for the kids, or it's too far from work, right? Okay. Reiterate what they just said so you understand it. And this is the most important part, in my opinion, is asking the question, what is it going to take to get this right? So now that I understand that you haven't sold your home, it's been a year. I understand the pain it has for your family. You guys are all frustrated. You don't want to live there anymore. The question is, what is it going to take for you to figure this out? And this is where you can open yourself up as the valuable resource that you are. By asking the question, what is it going to take for you to be able to achieve your goals, right? You put yourself in a position where they said, like, listen, we've exhausted all of our options. Like, I don't know. I've been looking for a house for a year. We haven't found anything. I guess I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. And this is where you can turn the corner and be like, all right, cool. Well, can I make some suggestions? Are you open-minded to a few suggestions? Can I try a few ideas on you? And this is where you can start to lay out a plan. And then that plan, you can explain what it's going to take for them to be able to buy the home that they want using the profits in the sale of their existing home and how they can do that within the time frame that they want to do that within. That is the point of a discovery call, is to first and foremost diagnose the reasons. Why are they making a change? Change is hard. Number two, explore the impact. What exactly is this change or this lack of change causing for you and your family? And then finally, start to help them visualize what the plan is going to look like once they turn the corner and get this thing right. Let me give you a couple discovery questions you can ask. I'm going to go rapid fire on this because we're running out of time. Help me understand why you haven't found the perfect home yet. So if you're talking to a seller who needs to list their property before they sell, help me understand why you haven't found the perfect home yet. Great question. This is the one I mentioned earlier in today's coaching. Just out of curiosity, if you didn't hire a realtor, how would you sell your home? This is going to give you a ton of information about how to position yourself later on when you get to objections. This one's so important. This one's called framing. Most people know that selling your home can be challenging. What's your biggest concern? See, one of the most important things here is that if you're going to charge 3%, 4%, 5%, 6%, if you talk about selling being easy and just posting on the MLS and how this is a buyer's market, we're going to get multiple offers, you are setting yourself up not to justify your fee. By framing selling in such a way where you're saying it's hard, which it is, you now can explore and validate what you charge. Most people know that selling your home can be challenging. What's your biggest concern? Well, I'm afraid of the complexity. I'm afraid about not getting an offer. I'm afraid about the home sitting on the market for 6 months. I'm afraid about not being able to sell before the end of the year because we want to buy this other home we already found. Okay, great. It seems like it's really important to you to sell your home before the end of the year because you got a home you're looking to buy soon. Right? That's the Chris Voss mirroring technique. It's one of my favorite techniques. You repeat the last 3 words, the last few key words of what they said to reiterate that you heard them and you understand their needs, so they'll believe your solution. If you guys haven't read Chris Voss's book, you definitely should do so. It's called Never Split the Difference. How important is it to you to sell your home before the end of the year? The how important is it question is such a great question because it can help you gauge and determine the seriousness or the importance of whatever it is you're going to be positioning later on in the call. This is the visualize. I have a favorite ask. I want you to imagine achieving all your goals. Now tell me, what does that look like for you? All right. And this is where you really get a better understanding of what exactly are they trying to accomplish? What is their definition of success? Last one for you guys today, handling objections. Hey guys, I hope you're really enjoying today's coaching. You know, one of the things that we really pride ourselves on at Curaytor is providing innovative ideas to help sort of push the conversation forward. I'm hoping you guys are really enjoying the content today. You know, we put a lot of work into making sure that we presented some ideas that you guys can immediately apply for your business, different ways and different techniques you guys can use to overcome some of the most difficult, critical, and challenging conversations you have every single day as a realtor. I'm going to just cover one last thing with you guys. So I I looked at some of the scripts online that realtors use. And this is an example of a script I found, which is, will you lower your commission? How many of you got this question before or some variation of it? Hey, your competitor's charging 3%. Will you go down to 3%? Your competitor's charging 2%. Will you go to 2%? You know, I'm guessing a lot of you have experienced this in some respect. Maybe even this past week, someone's asked you to lower your commission, right? Maybe when you do a price reduction, the consumer says to you, hey, well, seeing that I'm going to lower my price, you should lower your price. Difficult conversation to have. So here's an example of a script. Will you lower your commission? Now I'm going to read this out loud. I'm sorry, but I just can't take less. Here's why. If you took $6 and laid it on the table, 3 of that would go to the buyer's company, 1 of it goes to my broker, and 1 goes all to all the marketing that I would do. Do you want to take that last dollar away from me? What do you think the consumer is going to say to this bullshit? Yeah, I do. Like, you're already overpaid. See, the scripts that we see in real estate make one fundamental flaw, which is what they basically do is they respond to every single objection with an answer as if that is a solution. So you read this and you go, oh yeah, that sounds like a good idea because someone told me this is a good idea. Consumers are not morons. And asking a question that's so condescending, do you want to take that last dollar away from me and my family? Like, first off, half of this ain't true, right? $1 going to your broker probably isn't true. $1 going in the marketing, okay. If you sell $1 million property, you make $30,000 on commission. Are you trying to tell me that you spend $10,000 marketing that property? We work with thousands of agents and hundreds of teams across the country. I don't know any agent who's spending 1/3 of their entire commission on marketing a particular listing. That just doesn't happen unless it's a loss leader. So first and foremost, it's objectively untrue. Secondly, it's condescending. Third, it makes one fatal mistake, which is it tries to answer every objection with an answer. And I'm going to give you a very simple formula you guys can use, something that we coach in the book, exactly what to say for real estate agents. Just 3 questions. Will you reduce your commission? What makes you say that? Get a better understanding right out of the gates. Like, why do they even ask you that question? Now it forces them to have to justify. If they say, well, I'm just curious, then you're like, all right, this person was just asking. Like, no, we don't. It's end the conversation. It's done. You don't need to get into well, if I got $10 and I give $3 this person, do $4 this person, do you want to take that last dollar away from me? Like, you don't have to get into any of that nonsense. So they say, well, hey, Redfin charges less money than you guys, and I was wondering if you would lower your commission. Well, first off, if you've already uncovered there's a problem with your pitch and your presentation, your discovery, if by the end of it they're asking that question, so then you can turn the corner and say, well, okay, what's your experience working with an online broker versus a full service realtor? So you begin to position yourself against the competition by pointing out the points of distinction. And they go, well, I don't really know the difference between a full service realtor and an online brokerage. Would it help if I walked you through how we will help you sell your home for more money in less time than if you were to go out and hire a discount online broker? Yes, it would. Okay, great. And then you can cycle back to your unique value proposition. Based on everything you told me, you want to sell the house within the next 90 days. Here's our marketing strategy to achieve that. With an online broker, generally speaking, there are great companies that are for easy sales, or don't worry too much about timing or a price, and they're just going to basically put your listing on their website and then let buyers come to it, right? So you're able to kind of cycle back through your value proposition so they can understand exactly what it is that you do and how you're different. What makes you say that is the first question. Will you reduce your commission? Will you, in this case, help me sell my house without a contract? Will you, offer me a guarantee? What makes you say that? What's your experience working with a realtor? What's your experience with selling homes? What's your experience with working with a discount broker? Would it help if I could show you how we can accomplish all the goals that you told me during the discovery part of the conversation? So the answer to any objection is not an answer. The answer to every objection is a question, because you need to clarify, why are they saying what they're saying? Why are they asking what they're saying? And then get permission to provide some context and some advice and an answer to that question. In the book, we talk about this very basic concept, which is the person who asks the questions is in control of the conversation. That's at the core of what we teach. Guys, my name is Jimmy Mackin, CEO of Curaytor. I hope you got value out of today's coaching session. If you are interested in learning more about working with Curaytor closely to help you achieve your goals in 2020, if you are a listing agent who is looking for more listings, if you are looking for innovative ways to promote and market your home, if you are looking for ways to attract seller leads to your business, if you're looking for ways to stay in touch with your past clients and sphere of influence in a more effective way, our team will be reaching out to each one of you individually to check back in with you. I'll look forward to the opportunity of working together. Our team will send out the recording and the slides of today's coaching. I hope you guys got value out of it, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your week and have a great weekend. Thanks for tuning in.